In this video, I'm going to tell you 5 reasons why I think Sydney sucks. So the first thing that sucks about Sydney would definitely be the nightlife. People describe it as being dead, and when you go out on a Saturday night, you'll see if it's past about 10 o'clock, you won't see many people out. There's no sort of atmosphere. Most restaurants are closed by 10 o'clock, so the only thing that's really open is Macca's or the servos. And it's really, for a city like Sydney, you'd think the nightlife would be, you know, right up there, like with some of the big cities of the world. But yeah, it's really disappointing because the government introduced these lockout laws. So the government introduced laws whereby any nightclub or bar in the Sydney CBD area cannot let anyone in after 1:30 AM, and after 3 AM the bar cannot legally sell anyone alcohol. Yeah, they're a bit strict over here, and people always compare Sydney with Melbourne and say how much better the nightlife is in Melbourne. Every country I've been to, the nightlife has been so much better. Like, even on weekdays, it's better than Sydney's, you know, weekends. One thing about the nightlife in Sydney as well is there's no drinking in public. So if you're caught drinking in public, you can get a fine from the police, and yeah, basically it's illegal unless you're in a club or a bar or a designated place. So you can't just buy a drink and open it on the streets. So I think that contributes to the nightlife. Obviously it's there to keep people safe, but I find it cool in Japan how everyone's so respectful of the law over there, and people will drink and they won't start fights. They won't you know, they still know how to have a good time, but while still drinking in public. So yeah, that's something in Australia, Sydney particularly, you can't drink in public. I'm not sure if anywhere else in Australia you can drink in public, but yeah, definitely not in Sydney. One thing about the drink prices inside clubs is it's basically such a rip-off because yeah, like some places a beer will be about $8, a normal mixed drink will cost about $8. You know, a cocktail will be $20. Shot for one shot, it might be about $8. So yeah, and that's when you see a lot of people they rely on pills to give them a bit of a buzz. So yeah, that's one of the things that happens in festivals here in Australia, and especially in the Sydney area. A lot of people, they'll take pills, and you know, unfortunately a lot of people die because of taking the pills. And I think personally a big reason is just how expensive alcohol is, especially at these festivals and clubs and stuff. So yeah, I definitely don't promote drugs. Yeah, the nightlife in Sydney has so much more potential, especially because you've got the Darling Harbour area right by the water, and the clubs themselves, they're pretty good. Like once you're in there, the nightlife isn't too bad. You know, Australians are quite you know, I guess loose is a word to describe, you know, laid back and can have a good time. But yeah, there's so much more potential, and I've never been to Melbourne except for the airport, but yeah, I'm excited to see what the nightlife's all about in Melbourne, because yeah, it's every time I go to Sydney, and I'm not just saying it, it's disappointing. Like, you walk around on a Saturday and it's honestly dead. That's probably the best word to describe it. It's like a ghost town pretty much. The second reason why I think a lot of people won't like Sydney is just how expensive it is, especially housing. Like, it's one of the most expensive cities in the world, and even everything else like food, you know, clothing and stuff. Australia in general is quite expensive. I guess it's relative to where you're from, but yeah, a typical meal in Sydney, I guess from a pub or something, will probably cost around 15 Australian dollars. a beer will cost around $6. A can of a bottle of soft drink will cost about $3.50. It's definitely not the best budget friendly city. Definitely keep that in mind if you're coming to Sydney in particular, that it's not a cheap destination. Especially, another thing is accommodation. If you want like a decent sort of 3-4 star hotel, it will cost you around $100 to even $200 per night. So yeah, accommodation is definitely another thing that's expensive in Sydney. One thing Australia and especially Sydney being pretty much the biggest sort of city in Australia is the internet speed. It's pretty embarrassing comparing to other countries, and like how well off we are in Australia, you'd expect a lot better internet. The rankings, I think Australia was somewhere around 40. If you'd expect at least you know, between 10 to 20 or something for a country like Australia. They recently been rolling out the NBN, National Broadband Network, and that's supposed to you know, change the game and bring us up to speed. But even that, it's still really disappointing. I'm not too sure the exact numbers, but a lot of people, when they come from anywhere around the world, pretty much, they'll notice how much slower the internet is. To be honest, for me, I don't really notice it too much. I don't download a whole lot, but because I've lived there all my life and I don't notice it too much. But there are times when you'll be on your Wi-Fi at home and you'll pretty much because the internet's dropping out or something, you'll just switch to your mobile 4G data because it's more reliable than the Wi-Fi. But yeah, definitely the internet speed over here, it's pretty embarrassing. So number 4 is the public transport. Now it's not too bad. We've got a pretty good bus network and the train system's okay, but it's not always on time, and you know, you'll see a lot of rough people on the trains. It's not always clean. But the main thing about the public transport in Sydney, I find, is if you're coming from the south, so on the south coastline up towards Sydney, there's a whole like section. It's about half an hour from north of Wollongong up to around the waterfall sort of area south of Sydney, where there's no mobile reception at all, so you can't do anything online. There's no Wi-Fi on the trains. That's a big thing for a country like Australia, where we're so I guess well off. You'd expect the trains to have Wi-Fi and stuff. And yeah, I recently went to Japan and Korea, and they're so far ahead of us. Like even other countries, yeah, it's something that you'd expect, especially because Australia's such a big country, and like you'd expect like some sort of a, you know, bullet train which could take you from I don't know, the south coast of New South Wales, maybe even Melbourne up to Sydney a lot quicker. So yeah, the public transport, it's okay. They've introduced the Opal system where it's tap on tap off, and it's relatively affordable and convenient, and it works pretty well. But yeah, I think in particular the train system, it could do with a lot of improvements. And the 5th reason why I think Sydney sucks is definitely the traffic. It makes me you know, turn down jobs because of just how bad the traffic is. I think it has a lot to do with the way the city's designed, and like how you get into Sydney through the suburbs of like Heathcote, Hurstville, Engadine, all those sort of suburbs, and just the way Sydney's sort of laid out, I guess. You know, you see cities like Tokyo, Singapore, where like the population's a lot bigger, and Australia's population in general isn't very big, and yeah, the traffic's a big problem, I find, and yeah, I wouldn't even consider getting a job in Sydney just for that. It's the one thing people say about Sydney is they hate the traffic. Thanks for watching the video of reasons why I think Sydney sucks. If you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate it if you gave it a like, and I'm planning on doing this type of video for other cities I've visited, so subscribe. Yeah, I'll see you in the next video.